Good morning, Year 6. I hope you're well and have either done your English, your maths, or this is your first session, but you're having a good day so far. Today, in our reading about Private Peaceful, we're going to come near to the end of chapter 4, but not all the way to the end of chapter 4. And as part of that, we're going to be thinking about how we can understand a bit more about the text from comparing details from one element of the text to other elements of the text. So I think we'll find today's session really interesting. It's one of the key things as a reader is to understand what's happened before and what's happened within a text and to think about what that tells you about the development of the events or the characters. But to be successful in today's session, we will need to identify what we're being asked to do. We'll need to consider which element of the text links to the quotation that's cited within the text itself. We'll need to include reference to the text in our answer. And as I've said many times before, it doesn't always need to be a direct quotation. As long as you show me you understand some key information, numbers, dates relating to the text, that's fine. Okay. I just need to see clear evidence that you are identifying things based on the text, not just kind of what you reckon, what you think. Right, guys, as we've done before, some of the words in some sentences that are going to appear are going to be incorrectly used. So if I just show you here, the children were huddled under the umbrella trying to avoid the medal of the snow. Okay, there's a word within that sentence that's wrong. It's on the page, but it's also, it's replaced another word on the page and it's incorrect. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean once we've read through that page. We're going to read the end of page 55 and then we're going to carry on through page 56, stopping at the words church. Okay. So 55. It was late on a summer evening and we were just about to set off home. I'm going to move me away from the screen, sorry guys. To set off home when we heard the distant sound of an engine. At first we thought it was the Colonel's car. His Rolls Royce was the only car for miles around. That use of parentheses to drop in that bit of extra information shows me about the Colonel and just his selfishness really. Not selfishness, but he's the only car driver around. Shows me, it does show me his selfishness. He keeps spending money on himself and he's still not spending it on other people. For me, that shows this selfishness. He's thinking about himself. His Rolls Royce was the only car for miles around. But then we all realised at the same moment, this was a very different kind of engine altogether. It was a sound of intermittent droning, like 1,000 stuttering bees. A great simile there. When you hear one bee, it buzz, buzz, buzz. You hear lots of them together. That's the stuttering. I thought that was a really, really effective way of conjuring up the image of the sound, not the image, conjuring up the noise of the sound that could be heard. Like 1,000 stuttering bees. What's more, it wasn't coming from the road at all. It was coming from high above us. There was a flurry of squawking and splashing further upstream as a flight of ducks took off in a panic. We ran out from under the trees to get a better look. An aeroplane! We watched spellbound. Spellbound's a great word to describe how somebody's feeling about something as well, to show the effect of the action on them. If you're bound by a spell, if you're forced to watch it, it's almost a magical pull. You can't resist it. You're spellbound. Spellbound. We watched spellbound as it circled above us like some ungainly yellow bird, its great wide wings wobbling precariously. Oh, it might crash, it might not. Precarious means something might be about to go wrong, something's at risk. Precariously. We could see the goggled pilot, got his goggles on, looking down at us out the cockpit. We waved frantically, great adverb, really waving hard, frantically up at him, and he waved back. Then he was coming in lower. The cows in the water meadow scattered. The aeroplane was coming in to land, bouncing, then bumping along, and coming to a stop some 50 yards away from us. The pilot didn't get out, but beckoned us over. We didn't hesitate. I can tell why they're not hesitating, because normally if some random stranger beckons you over, you wouldn't go. But this is so exciting. They can't resist. They've been spellbound, haven't they? They must go and see this person who's beckoning them over. Better not switch off, he shouted over the roar of the engine. He was laughing as he lifted up his goggles. Might never get the damn thing started again. Oh, listen, the truth is, I'm a bit lost. The church up there on the hill. Is that Lapford Church? No, Charlie shouted back. That's Iddlesley, St. James. So lots going on here. The really interesting thing for me is reading this and just it sets us in time, doesn't it? 104 years ago when this, or 106 years ago when this was 110 years ago or so, the pilot was navigating by a map he'd got in front of him. He got lost and he was looking at. I'd never go on a plane nowadays if I was relying on the pilots having a piece of paper to navigate. I'd always assume it was all computers. I'd always assume there was a bit of avoidance of that human error. Now, when I looked at this section for the text that I was thinking about, I looked at the idea of meadow to avoid something as snow. Now, snow comes down as lots of it. So it's going to be lots of something. So I looked here for where lots of things were happening. There was squawking and splashing. So there's lots of noisy there, squawking and splashing, because they're both onomatopoeias. And then I noticed that flurry was the noun. Flurry then of snow rather than noun, rather than meadow. Okay, so meadow is the incorrect word there. So when I rewrote this sentence, I made a point of using joined handwriting. I'm making a point in doing this in some of your PowerPoints, guys, just to make the point. I'd like you to really try, even though you're at home, even though it's a different environment, to care about that presentation. Please try and do it. Otherwise, it'll be extra difficult when we come back for you to do that. So please, Evo, really careful handwriting if you can. Imani, join it. Lovely job. Thank you. Okay, guys, so flurry is the word there. A couple of other words then in this sentence where we've got the incorrect language, and I'll give you a bit of a clue for this page. Okay, so watched isn't correct, and scattered is not correct. So both those verbs are incorrect verbs. So you've got to find other verbs on the page that you can try and utilize within the writing when you complete those sentences underneath them. Carrying on then. Yes, we shouted. Whoops! And I really was lost. Jolly good thing I stopped, wasn't it? Thanks for your help. Better be off. He lowered his goggles and smiled at us. Here, you like humbugs? And he reached out and handed Charlie a bag of sweets. Cheerio then. Stand well back. Here we go. And with that, off he went, bouncing along towards the hedge. And that's in his plane. His engine spluttering. I thought he couldn't possibly lift off in time. He just managed it, but only just. His wheels clipping the top of the edge of the hedge before he was up and away. He did one steep turn, then flew straight at us. There was no time to run. All we could do was throw ourselves face down in the long grass. We felt the sudden blast of the wind as he passed over us. By the time we rolled over, he was climbing up over the trees and away. We could see him laughing and waving. We watched him soaring over the Idresley Church tower and then away into the distance. He was gone, leaving us lying there breathless in the silence he'd left behind. For some time afterwards, we lay there in the long grass watching a single skylark rising above us and sucking on our humbugs. When Charlie came to air them out, we had 5 each and 5 for Big Joe too. Was that real? Molly breathed. Did it really happen? And I like that as a question. It shows how amazing what had just happened was for them. If they're not sure if it happened, and they're actually perfectly sentient, perfectly sane people, they're not sure it happened, shows that it's such an unusual event, such an unusual occurrence. Was that real? Molly breathed. Did it really happen? And here's Charlie, the sensible one. We got our humbugs, said Charlie, so it must have been real, mustn't it? For these ones, guys, what I've done is highlighted the type of language that you're going to be looking for. So we've got my sister spluttered some pieces of fruit down to me. So that sentence, it's a verb. Spluttered. That's the incorrectly used piece of language. Can you find the correct verb on that page to make that sentence make sense? So swap that verb out. Sometimes people become distracted if they notice planes which are laughing past them. Probably laughing doesn't sound right, does it? It is a verb that you're trying to swap in, so swap in the verb. Jeremy became real after running a long way. Was Jeremy a robot? Was he an alien? We're not sure. Probably not, so maybe real might be the incorrect adjective. Okay, so looking for the correct word to change those sentences to. And again, joined lovely handwriting, please. Every time I eat humbugs from now on, Molly said, every time I look at skylarks, and this is showing how special it was for Molly as well as for the boys, I'm going to think of that yellow aeroplane and 3 of us. This is then back to being a 3, whereas previously it had started to be a 2 and a 1. So this is one of those last moments for Tommy where he really remembers that. And the 3 of us and how we are right now. Me too, and this is really special for me because it shows for the reader, I think, because it shows this is a moment in time. For Molly, it's special too. Me too, I said. Me too, said Charlie. Most people in the village had seen the aeroplane, but only we 3, making it such a special occasion, only we 3 had been there when it landed. Only we had talked to the pilot. I was so proud of that. too proud, as it turned out. I told the story, several embellished, which means kind of tweaked, maybe exaggerated, embellished versions of it again and again at school, showing everyone my humbugs just to prove all I'd said was true. But someone must have snitched on me, so told a story on me, snitched on me, told a teacher on me, because Mr. Munnins came straight over to me in class and for no reason at all told me to empty out my pockets. I had 3 of my precious humbugs left, and he confiscated them all. Then he took me by the ear to the front of the class, where he gave me 6 strokes of the ruler in his own special way, sharp edge down onto my knuckles. As he did it, I looked him in the eye and stared him out. It didn't dull the pain, nor I'm sure did it make him feel bad about what he was doing. But my sullen defiance of him made me feel a lot better as I walked back to my desk. As I lay in bed that night, my knuckles still throbbing, I was longing to tell Charlie about what had happened at school, but I knew that everything about school bored him now, so I said nothing. I'm stopping there, even though the paragraph carries on, because that's a really poignant point where Tommy doesn't think Charlie cares about his stories about school now. So again here, I haven't given you clues here, but you've got to find what the incorrect words are for those 2 sentences and then complete those sentences underneath. Right, guys, just thinking about our final element of the skill today is comparing elements with Instant. If we look back page 54, we can see this point where at nights Charlie and I lay in bed together. Charlie just slept. We never made up our stories anymore. When I did see Molly. Now, there's a way here that the text shows that Charlie and Tommy are similar to before, but also different from earlier. Okay, so if we look here, we've got 4 statements that can go in these spaces. How are they similar to before? Is it that they talk to each other? Is it they still share a room? Is it that Charlie now goes to sleep? Because that sounds different. Do they both like Wolf Woman? That's wrong. I think it is. They lay in bed together. Okay, they still share a room. I'm not sure if they share a bed, and lots of people 100 years ago would have had to share a bed because houses were smaller. Then are they different from each other? So different from earlier. How is something different? Now is a clue word, isn't it? Because it shows me something's different now to how it was before. So Charlie goes to sleep rather than as well, that comparative word, rather than talking to Tommy now. Guys, for you as well, you've got these sentences, or you've got a similar text type to do where for pages 55, 56 and 57, you've got to look at comparisons within the text and you've got to try and delve into it to understand how things have changed and how things are the same. And then you'll complete those on this page. Thank you for your attention today, guys. I really appreciate that you're joining in with these reading sessions, and I look forward to seeing some of that vocabulary on the worksheet and also in your other writing. Thanks, guys.